The garden chairs were exactly as uncomfortable as I remembered. Wrought iron with peeling white paint, strategically placed far from the main party on the terrace. I could hear the tinkling of champagne glasses and polite laughter floating down from above, where my family celebrated my mother's 60th birthday in style. "Here's your plate, Victoria," my sister Diana said, setting down a half-filled plate of leftovers. "We thought you might be more comfortable eating out here. You know, away from the investors and board members." I glanced at my watch, 7:28 p.m. In exactly 2 minutes, the evening news would break a story that would wipe the smug smile off Diana's face. "How thoughtful," I replied, not touching the cold food. "Wouldn't want to embarrass the family with my, what did Mom call it? My charity work?" Diana smoothed her designer dress, probably worth more than what most people made in a month. "The Wilson Foundation," she said with exaggerated air quotes. "Playing Robin Hood with Grandma's inheritance while the rest of us actually run successful businesses." If she only knew. The inheritance I'd received from Grandmother Rose 5 years ago, a mere $500,000 while my siblings got millions, had been seed money for something much bigger than they could imagine. "Speaking of business," Diana continued, "Dad's about to announce the merger. Finally saving the company from that mess you left when you quit." I smiled, remembering the day I'd walked away from Wilson Enterprises. They'd called me naive for suggesting the company focus on sustainable development and community investment. "Bleeding heart nonsense," Dad had scoffed. My phone buzzed. A message from my assistant. "All set. News breaks in 60 seconds. "You should come watch the announcement," Diana said, though her tone suggested the opposite. "Dad's really turned things around since your departure." I stood up, brushing off my pantsuit. "Actually, I think I will." Diana's eyes narrowed suspiciously as I followed her up to the terrace. The party was in full swing, Chicago's business elite mingling under crystal chandeliers. Mom held court near the center, laughing with her socialite friends. Dad stood near the podium, practicing his merger announcement speech. 7:30 p.m. The large TV screens mounted around the terrace, meant to showcase family photos, suddenly switched to breaking news. The party chatter died as the headline scrolled across the screen. "Wilson Foundation acquires controlling interest in Sterling Corp. $2.8 billion deal." Diana's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. Because Sterling Corp wasn't just any company. It was the corporation Dad had been counting on to save Wilson Enterprises through a merger. The same corporation that had just been bought by my little charity foundation. "What did you do?" Diana whispered, her face pale. I opened my laptop, pulling up the acquisition documents. Perfect timing to announce the Wilson Foundation's newest acquisition, don't you think? Heads turned as my father's voice boomed across the terrace. "What is this nonsense?" But before he could reach me, his phone rang. From his expression, I knew it was Sterling Corp CO, calling to break the news that the merger was off. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't served in the garden. It's served on live television. The terrace erupted into chaos. Dad's phone call ended abruptly and the color had drained from his face. Mom's perfect birthday party was forgotten as guests huddled around their phones, watching their Wilson Enterprises stocks plummet in real time. "Victoria," Dad's voice was dangerously quiet as he approached. "My office. Now." I followed him through the French doors, past the whispers and stares. Diana trailed behind us, her designer heels clicking frantically on the marble floors. Inside Dad's home office, the evening news was still playing on mute, showing graphics of the Wilson Foundation's meteoric rise. "Explain," Dad demanded, gripping the edge of his mahogany desk. Where did you get that kind of money?" I sat down calmly, opening my portfolio. "Remember when you all laughed at me for turning Grandma's small inheritance into a foundation? While you were busy buying vacation homes and sports cars, I was building something." "Building what?" Diana interrupted. "A charity that somehow has billions?" "The Wilson Foundation started as a charitable organization," I acknowledged. "But it evolved into something more. We've been acquiring struggling companies, transforming them into sustainable, community-focused enterprises. Sterling Corp is our largest acquisition to date, but it's hardly our first." Dad's face reddened. "You knew about the merger plans. You knew Wilson Enterprises needed this deal. Of course I knew, I replied evenly. Just like I knew Wilson Enterprises has been hemorrhaging money for years because you refused to adapt to changing markets. The merger wasn't going to save you. It was just going to delay the inevitable. Diana collapsed into a chair, her perfect composure cracking. Do you have any idea what you've done? The stock is dropping by the minute. I pulled up another document on my laptop. Actually, I do. Which is why the Wilson Foundation is prepared to offer a different kind of deal to Wilson Enterprises. Dad's head snapped up. What kind of deal? Complete restructuring. Sustainable practices. Community investment. Everything you dismissed as bleeding heart nonsense 5 years ago. I turned the laptop to face them. The foundation will purchase a controlling interest in Wilson Enterprises, but at a premium that will stabilize the stock price. You want to buy us out? Diana's voice rose hysterically. Your own family? No, I corrected her. I want to save the company. But this time we do it my way. Through the office windows, I could see Mom trying to salvage her party, but guests were already leaving, their phones glued to their ears as they called their brokers. Why today? Dad asked quietly. Why at your mother's birthday? I met his gaze steadily. Because 5 years ago at my graduation dinner, you told everyone I was throwing my life away. You seated me at the kids' table and told the board members not to waste time on my foolish ideas. Today seemed like a good day to show you where those foolish ideas led. The news had switched to showing my professional headshot. The CEO of the Wilson Foundation, now one of the most powerful sustainable investment firms in the country. The offer expires at midnight, I said, standing up. The foundation's lawyers are waiting at our offices with the paperwork. Your choice, Dad. But remember, without this deal, Wilson Enterprises won't survive the month. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Diana, you can keep the garden chairs. I won't be needing them anymore. As I stepped back onto the terrace, the whispers died down. Mom stood frozen by the birthday cake, its candles long since blown out. Victoria, she called out, her voice trembling. What have you done to our family? I paused, looking at the woman who had always chosen the perfect party over painful truths. I didn't do anything to our family, Mom. I just showed them who I really am. Happy birthday. The night air was cool as I walked to my car, my phone already buzzing with calls from business reporters. Behind me, through the windows, I could see Dad slumped at his desk, staring at my offer on his laptop screen. He had 2 hours to decide: accept my help or watch his empire crumble. 11:45 p.m. The Wilson Foundation's offices gleamed against the Chicago skyline, 70 floors above the city streets. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the lights below while my team of lawyers waited in the conference room. My phone buzzed, a text from Diana. He's coming. I didn't reply. 15 minutes until midnight. 15 minutes that would either rebuild or completely destroy what remained of our family. At 11:52 p.m. the elevator doors opened. Dad walked in looking older than I'd ever seen him. Behind him came Mom, still in her party dress, and Diana, her makeup slightly smeared from what I suspected were tears. The papers, Dad said hoarsely. Where are they? I gestured to the conference room. Everything's ready. As we settled around the massive table, I noticed Mom's hands shaking as she gripped her designer purse. Diana couldn't meet my eyes. The lawyers began distributing documents, their movements precise and professional. Before you sign, I said, I want to show you something. I pressed a button and the wall screens came to life, displaying projects the Wilson Foundation had completed over the past 5 years. Failing factories transformed into sustainable manufacturing centers. Struggling communities revitalized through strategic investment. Workers whose jobs and pensions had been saved. This is what I was trying to tell you about 5 years ago, I explained. Business doesn't have to be just about profit. It can be about progress, about people. And you're making money? Diana asked quietly, staring at the screens. More than Wilson Enterprises ever did, I confirmed. Because it turns out doing good is good business. Dad picked up his pen, then set it down again. Why didn't you tell us about all of this? Would you have listened? I asked. Or would you have tried to take control just like you always did? I needed to build this my way without your interference or judgment. And now you own us, Diana said bitterly. No, I corrected her. Now we have a chance to work together. If you want it. I pulled out another set of documents, employment contracts. Diana, your marketing skills are incredible. Even I can admit that. The foundation needs someone to head our public relations division. Her head snapped up, surprise replacing bitterness. And Dad, I continued, your experience is valuable. I'm offering you a position as senior advisor for our industrial transformation projects. Not because you're my father, but because despite our differences, you understand this industry. Mom spoke for the first time since entering the room. And what about the Wilson name? The legacy? Look around, Mom. I gestured to the foundation's logo on the wall. I kept the name. Because despite everything I am a Wilson. I just redefined what that means. 11:58 p.m. Dad picked up the pen again. This time he started signing. The garden chairs, he said suddenly, pausing between signatures. You remember those were your grandmother's favorite spot. She used to say she could see everything clearly from there, away from all the noise. I felt my throat tighten. I know. Why do you think I never complained about sitting there? Diana let out a small laugh that sounded almost like a sob. She left you the smallest inheritance because she knew you'd do the most with it, didn't she? Grandma Rose always said money was like water, I smiled. It can destroy if it stays stagnant, but it can give life if it flows in the right direction. 12 a.m. The lawyers collected the signed documents. It was done. Wilson Enterprises was now part of the Wilson Foundation. So, Diana stood up, smoothing her dress in a familiar nervous gesture. When do I start? Tomorrow, I replied. There's a lot of work to do. Dad cleared his throat. Victoria, about the garden chairs. Keep them where they are, I said. Sometimes you need to sit in the garden to see what needs to change in the house. As my family prepared to leave, Mom lingered behind. I'm sorry, she whispered, for not seeing you. You see me now, I replied, hugging her for the first time in years. That's what matters. From the windows of my office I watched them drive away. The Wilson Foundation's lights reflected off the sleek surface of my desk, where a small photograph sat, Grandma Rose in her garden chairs, smiling knowingly at the camera. Well, Grandma, I whispered, I think I finally made something flow in the right direction. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Transforming Wilson Enterprises, integrating the teams, healing old wounds. But tonight, standing in my office 70 floors above Chicago, I was simply Victoria Wilson, the girl from the garden who had changed everything. Sometimes the best view isn't from the terrace. Sometimes it's from the place they least expect you to succeed.